Kent wasn't ready for the curveball on the rundown. He is shook right now, Tuck.
I am.
We
got him.
They always do this. Every now and then, I'd like to be part of the production of this show. And Matty just has these little side conversations with Tucker. We're going to talk about Mahomes' injury. We're going to talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And apparently, we're going to talk about purging intrusive thoughts. Let's roll.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our tremendous partners in Possible here at KC Sports Network. Kent Swanson here with Matthew Lane. Matthew, when did this side conversation about the rundown happen with Tucker? I need to know. I need to know the deets.
You'll find out in due time. You'll find out when you need to know. You don't need to know right now what's going on and when this happened.
Sweet.
All that you need to know is that you need to save some time at the end of the show. We have a little segment coming at the end of the show. So don't ride this up to like 52 minutes and then try to sign off at 53 minutes.
Is this a game?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Because
football's not a game to me, Kent.
Look, if you sprung a surprise game on me sometime, but you also sprung that Craig Stout was jumping in to do the game with us, I'd be okay with that. Like, you know, that would be just fine. But this scenario, Grayson says I'm sounding better, and then there goes the cough again.
The surprise that you want isn't as fun for me. I like the surprises you don't want a lot better.
That's every surprise you've ever done ever. Let me
think of some math games, and then I'll hit you with a surprise.
Those weren't math games. Those were not math. Those were illogical. Just hey, whoever was, what player was standing on his head on a Tuesday, but is also left-handed. But
see,
there's a chance. There's a chance. Thanks everyone hanging out with us today. We appreciate you. Kent does need a lozenge. I'm working on it. I'm trying. I do have a lot more energy though. The cough is here every now and then. So we're dealing with that here or there, but I'm really hoping that all the social videos avoid me coughing entirely this week, and I am very hopeful of that. Okay, so I guess we probably should start the show with the big news that we're all kind of, paying attention to, looking at. Patrick Mahomes has been diagnosed with what is being called a mild high ankle sprain, because those are normally mild. Timeline, the uncertainty of how long that will keep him out, if it will even keep him out at all, kind of remains to be seen. It doesn't feel like there's too much information changed from kind of the expectations that we had, post game during the post game show. Kind of feels like we're about where we were at, which I guess, no new news is good news in some regard, Maddie.
Yeah, the only thing about me, and I guess we're talking about it a little bit later, it looks like on this rundown with the short week stuff, the only thing really about this injury that jumps out to me is just like, it is a injury to Patrick Mahomes that is coming on 6 days of rest, followed by 4 days of rest before they play like another game, right? Like the schedule is the only thing that gives me any kind of pause about this. We've seen, not that high ankle sprains mean nothing, but we've seen Patrick Mahomes suffer high ankle sprains or get rolled up on, be essentially in the same situation that he was in, and be able to come back and play a week later or shortly thereafter. So if this was like a normal time period in between games, I don't think that there would be much of a concern that I had going into it. It's just the fact that there is 2 more games coming in relatively short time. I guess that gives it a little bit more issue. And I guess on top of that, the Bills won, right? The Bills won yesterday. The Chiefs don't have this 1 seed locked up. They don't have some kind of like obvious commanding lead. Like winning this next game against the Texans, while helpful, doesn't secure the 1 seed. So like, I guess there are some outside factors that go into what you do with Mahomes, but like by and large, I'm not overly concerned, as bad as that says, about the best player on the Kansas City Chiefs suffering a high ankle sprain right before the playoffs start.
Yeah, I mean, look, he won a Super Bowl doing it. He won his second Super Bowl doing it against the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was pretty sick. And it was like, the stuff that legends are made of. I don't really want, with all the struggles that this team has had, and with all the struggles this offensive line has had, I'm not really enthused about the idea of him having to repeat that again, though. And the circumstances are a little different, if you ask me, about for a Patrick Mahomes dealing with a high ankle sprain versus what he was doing 2 years ago when he had a better offensive line that time around, right? And that offense was moving remarkably efficiently because teams were just playing zone coverage, and he was getting to beat them, just get to carve it up. So I don't know. I don't know if I feel as good this time around as I did. I didn't feel good last time. It's just I think this is a different challenge than the one that he was dealing with the last time around. And it's not something I'm really excited about this team having to do yet again as they head into the most important parts of the season.
Yeah, it's not ideal, right? I want to be very clear. It's not ideal that he has a high ankle sprain going into the home stretch and then going into the playoffs. It's just one of those things. I think he was coming back in that game. If it was a little bit closer, if there was a real thought that they absolutely had to win it, or if there was any thought that they might lose that game, he was going to come back in. And obviously, as I think he even said afterwards, the adrenaline's still pumping, so you feel okay for a while. It's the next day when things swell up. I think we've seen this enough. We've seen this enough to think that Patrick Mahomes can play on a bad ankle. Now, the issue is this year he's been getting hit a lot, right? And it's not just the ankle. It's just kind of a cumulative effect. And in years past, when he has gotten hurt, when he had the high ankle sprains and stuff, he's been able to largely avoid getting hit because the pass protection has been a little bit more consistent. I don't even want to say better, just more consistent. He's been able to avoid it when it takes a lot less hits. This year, he is getting hit at an incredible rate. And so even if you come back now and it's not perfect, you probably get a little bit, I don't know, you probably get a little bit more concerned that it's going to get hit again. He's going to re-injure and stuff like that. So again, I want to be very clear, not feeling good that the ankle got sprained, but I also don't think I have the same level of concern. It seemed like some of the national media stuff was trying to push about how he could be out for a while. He could miss a bunch of time. He might not play till the playoffs. I don't think any of that stuff's happening. And even when he does come back, whether that is next week, whether that is on Christmas, whether that's week 18 against the Broncos or the playoffs, he's probably going to play just fine comparatively because we've seen him do it numerous times.
Yeah, the reports were, hey, look, this is normally a 4 to 6 week injury for mere mortals. And it sounds like, it may not be a super long recovery time for Patrick Mahomes to get back into the swing of things. Try to get back into this game. I don't know when we're going to be seeing him. We'll find out. I think we can have that conversation as we're talking about some of the short week stuff. It is super inconvenient that Mahomes does this during the literal shortest 3-week span in the history of the National Football League, where this is absurd. Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday is an insane schedule. It's never been done before in the NFL, and here we are right on the precipice of that whole thing. Here comes Patrick Mahomes, with the injury. And oh, by the way, this game's against a playoff team that just won their division. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for this team to try to navigate some things as they go through all this and what they do and the decisions they make. The other big news today is Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been released from the team. Do not see him active, I believe, for the entirety of his time here in this final season here in Kansas City. Is released from the team. Presumably, you got Hollywood Brown potentially coming back into the mix this week. There's going to be a corresponding move coming in very shortly, I would imagine, sometime tomorrow, you would think. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire is released from the team. Maddie, what are your thoughts?
It's such a touchy subject. Not touchy, but it's a sensitive subject because Clyde was obviously dealing with a lot of stuff beyond the scope of football, beyond just the game, and you don't want to speak on anything like that. I hope that he is doing well. with everything that he has going on mentally outside of the game of football. I hope everything is going great for him. It sounds like he was appreciative of the fans that did support him during his time at Kansas City, which is great. And so I hope that continues to be the play thing. I hope that he feels like the Chiefs, and I hope the Chiefs did do right by him given the situation of everything that was going on. And it sounds like that happened because he was well liked in the entire organization. So from that perspective, like obviously you hope all those things happen. You hope things are going well. On the football field, I mean, like, it kind of makes sense. Like, it doesn't seem like he's going to play this year, and they eventually are going to need a roster spot, right? It doesn't seem like he's coming back. They want to use that roster spot for something else. Even if he does come back, where does he fit into this running back rotation, this depth chart? There is a part of the Chiefs probably trying to do right by him, but at some point in time, too, they are trying to win a Super Bowl. If you are not going to get anything from that roster spot, you probably want to start to use it at some point in time. And it just feels like the time kind of ran out on whatever was going on there, and we got to that point.
There's some speculation that perhaps Clyde Edwards-Helaire was on the active roster enough to allow him to accrue his fifth season in the league, which would help him secure benefits from the National Football League. So if he was on the active roster for a certain amount of time, perhaps that is something the Chiefs were doing to facilitate him being able to get, not only some paycheck, but also potentially to help him, accrue enough seasons when it comes to some of those benefits. So maybe that is a part of what happened here with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not sure, but it does make sense. Like from a football perspective, it definitely does make sense. It doesn't seem like that there's a ton of plans for him right now in this season, and with everything that's gone on with him, I think it probably they needed a roster spot. They were in a spot that they really needed one. And so they had to make some decisions, and there was a decision that they made. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire did have a message shortly before the announcement. Love you, KC. A family I didn't know I needed. Y'all made a kid from Baton Rouge dreams come true. To Cheese Kingdom, it's all love and support I had in troubling times will forever be unmatched from you guys. With love, Clydro. You saw some video, him kind of talking about some of the stuff that he's dealt with some of his post-traumatic stress from, what happened with him in an attempted robbery in college, but also like he went through, everything at Union Station this year too. And, I don't know how that affected him, but, perhaps there's something there, right? Perhaps there's, he's been through a lot, man. I mean, I don't think that was easy for anybody, what everybody went through over at Union Station either. So a lot of love, a lot of respect to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and wishing him the absolute best moving forward for him. Okay. So we talked about the Mahomes injury, talked about Clyde's situation. Everything's tying back to this Saturday football game. The Chiefs play on Saturday, right? They're in the gauntlet. They're going to be about in the middle of the gauntlet. They're having to stretch 3 games in a Saturday or a Sunday, Saturday, Thursday, trying to do that somehow. We'll see how this goes over for the entirety of the league. But man, the Chiefs are in a tough spot. Netflix may not even be getting Mahomes because of this. So take that. This game was normal. This game would have been normal, but yeah, Maddie, what do you think the Chiefs' plan should be with this this gauntlet that they're absolutely about to deal with, and what do you think the Chiefs should be doing with the Mahomes situation?
I mean, okay. I guess it's really hard to say, because here's the point. I think where I get stuck is, let's start with Mahomes. Let's say you sit Mahomes. What do you do with everybody else? If you're going to rest Patrick Mahomes against the Houston Texans, and how hard are you trying to win that game? Chris Jones just played like 94% of the snaps this past week. Travis Kelce also played 90% of the snaps. All their starters, the guys that need the rest, are playing a ludicrous amount of snaps right now to get wins, and probably in hopes to try to lock up this 1 seed early. If you aren't starting Patrick Mahomes and starting Carson Wentz, not saying that you can't win a game that way. Andy Reid has clearly come up with backup quarterback game plans before, but you're clearly not putting your best foot forward in that situation. You're dealing with an injury to your quarterback. Do you just rest Mahomes, make everybody else go out there and play? But then at that point, you're running the chance of losing having to play all 18 or play through week 18. And then all these guys that just played 95% of the snaps, in which you can almost guarantee they've thought about maybe getting to rest before the playoffs start. So I feel like they got themselves in a little bit, not themselves, they are just in a little bit of a pickle here, because if Mahomes isn't playing, you're obviously running a higher risk of losing. And then do you decide to rest other players as well? Or do you still go all out to get the win? Because how do you tell players that they don't want to win the game?
So I think there's only one answer to that question.
Ooh.
I think there's only one answer to that specific question. And it is, you go out there and you try to win that football game. You put your best foot forward, but Carson Wentz is behind center. So I don't think there's any scenario where you you load manage the rest of the team just because Patrick Mahomes isn't playing in this game. I think because if you take care of business at home against the Houston Texans, which I think is absolutely in the realm of possibility, the Chiefs are only 2.5 point underdogs in this game currently as it sits. And that's been fluctuating all over the place. They're currently only 2.5 point underdogs in this game, which is definitely assuming that Patrick Mahomes will not be playing. But if you win this football game, you are 1 win away from the 1 seed, right? You are 1 win away from that 1 seed. And you can figure things out. Maybe you're taking week 18 off if you can beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe, it comes down to a week 18 game and you got to go play and take care of business in order to secure that 1 seed. But I just don't see any scenario where you don't try to win that football game. Because if you take care of business there, you're in a phenomenal spot to win that 1 seed. That win against the Houston Texans is massive for your outlook in being able to secure the 1 seed. If you just take this week off or whatever, and maybe workload and load manage, or maybe sit a couple of people that otherwise wouldn't, you might be stuck. You might be stuck in a situation where you still have to play out week 18. You still might have to play week 18 out. So now you've lost that ability to sit that week 18 out, because if the Bills and the Chiefs are tied for the 1 seed, and I know the Bills are playing, I think, the Patriots the last week of the season, I understand that. The Chiefs are still going to go out there and try to win that game too. They're not just going to assume a loss from the New England Patriots. So now you've lost your ability to kind of load management at the end of that game too. So I don't know. I don't think there's a scenario where you can sit this game out or manage this load. I think you go out and you try to win this football game, because if you win it with Carson Wentz, you're in a tremendous situation to take the 1 seed, get the week 18 off, even potentially if you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you can give Patrick Mahomes a ton of more rest time. You can have from week 17 on potentially, or hey, if you win this game, maybe you let Carson Wentz play on that Thursday night football game, and you only break glass in case of emergency. Maybe you're trying to win that football game with Carson Wentz against the Steelers, and then you've got the 1 seed locked up, and Patrick Mahomes doesn't even have to play week 18. And now you're getting him rest until mid-January. I think you got to keep trying to win football games. I don't think it's in this team's DNA. I think we've seen this team in their pursuit of 1 seeds have the same situation happen to him with Matt Moore. Go out, try to win this football game with the backup quarterback, and then just see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you have to do. You can't sit guys in the middle of the season for a game and then come back and play games after. Like, that's not going to work, right? So I'm with you. I think that they probably are going to try to win this game no matter what. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, because I'm playing devil's advocate because if not, I think it's pretty cut and dry, right? The Chiefs are going to try to win this game. They're going to play whoever they need to play to win this game. And if that involves Patrick Mahomes, it does. If it doesn't involve Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't. I guess the only flip side of that is if you do have to play all the way through week 18, if you have to play all 17 games of this season because you need to, after already essentially the entire core of this team playing a full football season more than everybody else around them, like, that's tough, especially because they are driving some of these older guys into the ground. Chris Jones playing the most snaps he ever has. Travis Kelce somehow playing the most snaps he ever has, despite the fact that he looks like he can barely breathe half the time they show him on the field. Like, they are really going to kind of play with fire with this if they can't lock up the 1 seed early. If they have to play all the way through week 18 because they do drop a game and nobody gets rest, having obviously the 1 seed in the bye is going to be helpful. But I just think you kind of look around the way that they are not managing guys' snap counts. They are not. The only person getting a managed snap count is DeAndre Hopkins. Everybody else is full bore, play as much as you can. The way they're playing people, it seems like they are playing with the goal in mind that they might not have to play one of these games coming up. Obviously, that would be week 18. It's just there is a real chance they don't get there with Carson Wentz.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. Like, it's going to be a challenge. Like, this is a very tough stretch that the Chiefs are about to endure. They haven't had this kind of difficulty of schedule since early in the season, when they were having, play the Ravens and I guess the Bengals have kind of been proven to not be so hot. But, like, that was a challenging early start to the season. I mean, it was the Bengals Super Bowl like it always is too. Alicia Marie saying, I won't lie, in the not very likely scenario that the Broncos need to win in week 18 to eliminate the Bengals, it would be kind of hilarious for us to lose to the Broncos just because. Hey, if that game doesn't matter, well, it'd be kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie, I think that would be a little bit hilarious. I think the Broncos, I'm actually rooting for the Broncos to not have anything to play for in that game, because that puts the Chiefs in a very good situation where they just need to win one of the next two. And then play the Broncos backups to get the 1 seed potentially. So I'm kind of hoping I'm rooting for the Broncos on Thursday night, because that could really help them kind of position themselves to, be locked into the playoffs and maybe, take that week 18 off just to kind of, give themselves a little bit of rest before, the regular season ends. So, I don't know. I'd like to see a scenario where, the Broncos don't really have much to play for in that game, but hopefully that happens. And the Chiefs just have to win one of the next two. Man, it's a tough spot to be in. Again, like, I know we're kind of just assuming Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think I'm assuming that. I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to try to play. I think, like I was kind of saying earlier when I said we were going to talk about it, talking about the ankle and stuff. I think the only reason he doesn't play is because there's a game in 6 days followed by a game in 4 days, essentially after that. I think if this was 7 days and then 7 days to the next game, I think Patrick Mahomes doesn't miss any time whatsoever. I think they might be giving caution to this, saying, hey, we need you, if we go out here and play this game and you even just slightly hurt it, if you just need a little bit more time to recover before you're able to play again, you might not be ready for that next game. So why don't we just go ahead and let it heal a little bit more? I think the only thing that's going to stop him from Mahomes, and this is just my guessing, that my only thing that's going to stop him is the fact that there is limited time from the Houston Texans game to the Pittsburgh Steelers game. I think if it was up to him and we're talking normal stuff, or even if the following game, the Steelers game, the 6 days isn't even a big deal. It's how quickly that Christmas Day game comes after this. If it was Saturday to the following Saturday or Saturday the following Sunday, again, I think he plays. It's just, I think you have to start considering what is his recovery going to be like after this ankle injury, what's going to happen and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty 50-50 chance he plays.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 50-50 for me. Like, I'd probably put it like 40-60 he plays. So like, I think it's leaning that he's not going to play this game. I think I heard one reporter, I think it was Rappaport, saying it's very similar to what he had against the Jags as far as like severity, which is like, man, I'd try to give him a little bit of time before that one. And so it's like, hey, maybe someone said, what's up, Ken, by the way. What's up, Kyle? Actually,
give us your best Ken impression from the movie.
No, not today. I don't got it at all.
What about your best Eric Bieniemy?
No, I don't think I could do a good job.
You did it. You should have left that in the holster.
Never mind. I don't want to do it today. I'm blaming the cough. I'm blaming the cough.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I mean, if Carson Wentz goes out and beats the Texans, if Carson plays, man,
yeah,
they put themselves in a really good spot too, man. Like, just keep winning, baby. Just keep winning football games. Just go, like, because whoever's the quarterback, like, this game against the Texans is just not immediately written up as an L, right? Like, this isn't an L. You're like, yes, it is.
I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. I think Andy Reid is as good as any coach in the NFL if you have a backup quarterback in there for one game. I really do. I also sit here and watch this Chiefs team, and boy, if they don't rely on Patrick Mahomes to get them out of a lot of really bad situations, specifically on third down. And so yes, is there a chance that Andy Reid can scheme up enough stuff to make it easy on Carson Wentz and they're able to come out of a win against a Houston team that is clearly not as good as a lot of people thought coming into the year? Absolutely. 100%. At the same time, you go through even a half where Carson Wentz has to do even 50% of what Patrick Mahomes has to do on a weekly basis. I don't know. It feels like that game's going to get away from you really, really fast. So, like, no, it's not chalked up to a loss just because if Carson Wentz has to play. I also think, though, that like Carson Wentz has been pretty bad for the past few seasons playing football. I think that it might be kind of difficult to come out of that game with the W if he's there.
So is Matt Moore. So is Chad Henne. Sample sizes add up for all of them, baby. We just need one game. Carson Wentz needs to go make some money. He can do that if he goes takes care of business. He gets to use Texans on Saturday. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
All right, continuing this thing on. Wanted to talk a little bit about the defense today, Matthew Lane, because they did some good things against the fighting Jameis Winstons and the fighting Dorian Thomas Robinsons and the entire state of Ohio. It was a pretty good day to be a member of the Chiefs, Matthew, which I believe has one of the better scoring defenses in all the National Football League at this point in the year.
Oh, wow. The Chiefs defense played well versus the Browns. They did. They played better than they had been essentially since the Jalen Watson injury. Even what the Browns were kind of doing well wasn't stuff that you were expecting to sustain throughout an entire game. It wasn't like some previous games like the Raiders or the Chargers game where the offenses were clearly leaving stuff on the field, right? The Chiefs defense was giving up potentials for big plays and they were just unable to connect. The Chiefs defense kind of had a good read on a lot of what the Browns were doing. They kind of shut them down. They forced them into a lot of bad situations. Jameis Winston helped that cause quite a bit. And when they were presented with opportunities to force turnovers or to get pressures on third and longs, they had guys that were making those plays. And that's something that had been missing. The Chiefs had gotten into some decent spots all year long where opposing offenses had to convert third and longs, where opposing offenses kind of felt like they were on their heels, and they didn't always do a great job of making plays in those situations. In fact, they gave up a lot of plays in those spots. And this game was the opposite. Jameis tried to force a ball. Instead of giving up a catch, they were coming away with an interception. They get, the Browns look like they're maybe building up a little bit of momentum, force a fumble, and the Chiefs get the ball right back. Like, guys were making plays at a rate and in ways that they hadn't been essentially all year, but especially since Watson got hurt.
Yeah, no, this was, I think, the best performance that I've seen from them. Like, I think you're right that the timelines add up. This is the best one that we've seen since the Jalen Watson injury. And everything was sound. Like, I mean, I don't think I saw a ton of missed tackles, honestly. And I don't think the Browns did a great job of, doing some of the things that other teams have. Jameis wasn't, leveraging the slot as much as, other people have in recent memory. And, they didn't have a great answer for the blitz. But I'll tell you what, man, I think the one thing that I took away from this game, I thought it was Chris Jones' best game of the season. And I thought he played a really, really good game that helped the entirety of the defensive line have success, right? I thought his rushes were more controlled and more disciplined than they've been all year. And you saw the impact that had for a lot of other guys being able to clean things up. There was an early play in the game where Chris kind of took himself out of the play, got washed wide in the B gap, but basically wound up, by the rusher off the edge. And Jameis stepped in, threw an easy completion to what's his name? Jerry Jeudy for that third down conversion. But then after that, it was just, hey, look, some really disciplined marches to the quarterback, bull rushing him, pushing the pocket on Jameis, making him feel uncomfortable, giving other players a chance to kind of, do some of that cleanup work. And it was better cleanup work. I think things looked a lot more in sync than they had the entirety of the year from a pass rush perspective. And I think it's because Chris Jones had his most controlled, disciplined game as a pass rusher. I thought he was tremendous. And that's the kind of performance I think this team needs moving forward. He was still making plays. He was still impacting the quarterback. He wasn't the one necessarily getting the sack. But the Chiefs put a bunch of sacks on Jameis, partially because it's just Jameis. But at the same time, it was also how Chris Jones rushed the passer in this game, I thought was tremendous.
Yeah, this felt like a game a little bit more where Chris Jones was trying to win in a little bit more of a confined space. He wasn't getting as far outside of his rush lanes, and I don't necessarily mean that as a negative. Jones has the ability or the green light to win however he sees fit, and it's usually up to other guys to cover for him. It's kind of something that we've been talking about, and when you become good enough, that's a completely fine strategy. J.J. Watt went his entire career with the Texans, and then a little bit with the Cardinals doing that. Aaron Donald obviously also had that green light. Now, Donald was kind of a different beast in that he didn't really have to go too far out of his rush lane just because he was one of the freakiest players who've ever played in the game. But Chris Jones has that same green light. And sometimes that means he gets out of his rush lane and the nose tackle next to him or the defensive end next to him kind of has to cover for wherever he's missing from, right? Wherever he left. This game didn't feel like there was as much of that. Yeah, he was still shooting gaps. He was still trying to get upfield, but it wasn't in the same way where he was getting way out of his rush lane. You look back and the Bills game sticks out to me a lot because he was impacting a lot of plays in the Bills game. But if you look at his rush lane and you were to draw kind of like straight lines to the quarterback from where every defensive lineman's lined up, his line crosses a lot of other lines when you go ahead and write that up. And that makes it, when you do that, that makes it easier for a quarterback to get away. It makes it harder for other guys. And obviously, Chris Jones is winning at a high enough rate, so you live with it. But this game, it just felt like he was a little bit more out of everybody else's way. And then you saw George Karlaftis giving a little bit more a chance to pin his ears back and really get after Jameis Winston. And he had one of his better games of the season, a couple quick wins. He was getting pressure early in the rep rather than late because he was really able to take that high side rush. He was able to really get up the arc and try to turn the corner versus having to worry about doubling back and covering the inside shoulder. You saw Charles Omenihu do the same thing. He's actually able to rush deep up the arc because he's not worrying about having to counter back to the inside to protect something. So if they can continue to rush like this and then also release Chris Jones on the times that they need it, or if he's going to continue like he did in this game, because he also got a legitimate pressure, not just Jameis into other pressures, but he can also continue to impact the quarterback directly and indirectly. Like, yeah, I think that's big for them going forward. And hey, maybe if they keep that up, maybe they can actually play Joshua Uche and get a little bit of speed off the edge if they don't have to worry about containing, some other stuff.
Let's pump the brakes on that one, Matty. I don't know about all that.
Not bad.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. I mean, there's some.
You know what? Speaking of defense, you want to know a crazy stat? I was just looking at this. Trent McDuffie was targeted 10 times in this game. How many catches do you think he gave up?
2.
5.
Oh.
How many yards?
5.
8.
Wow, that's. I think.
No, okay, this obviously could be like, there could be some weird stuff in here and things like that. I think they're counting a target on the screen pass that probably lost 5 or 6 yards where he came up and made the tackle on the running back where he busted up Ford's thigh, I think it was. So like there's a negative play in there and stuff, but like he was targeted a lot. And I think a lot of the reason he was targeted a lot, because if you remember early in the game, the Browns, I don't want to say had success, but they were able to put some drives or plays together because they were hitting Jerry Jeudy in particular out of the slot. They actually moved Jeudy into the slot. He had been playing predominantly outside. They moved him into the slot and they were finding some success on these outbreaking routes. Once Jamari Conner left the game because of his concussion, again, hopefully he's doing well, you get Trent McDuffie moves into the slot. I think the targets were still coming, but the success wasn't near the same, right? All of a sudden, some of those, 8-9 yard gains that Jerry Jeudy is getting anytime you throw him the ball are becoming 4 or 5 yard gains or nothing. They're just not there. They're not being taken away. So I do think that 10 targets is byproduct of him having to move into the slot, but I think it worked out well for the Chiefs because that's where the Browns were trying to get Jerry Jeudy activated, and the game was kind of already getting out of hand. But once that happened, they didn't really have much of a chance left. Like it seemed like Trent McDuffie really took away their only offensive counterpunch to anything that was happening.
You ready to get weird, Matty?
Sure.
Is the Chiefs better with Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams as the outside corners?
I think it was for that game. I know I'm not going to go that far. Joshua Williams didn't have a particularly good game. I think Najee Johnson had a handful of not particularly good games. And I think the Chiefs have to be relatively vanilla with their coverage calls when you have both of those guys in there. I think the fact that you get to have Trent McDuffie in the slot though, and you can move, like bounce around from the slot to outside and stuff like that, I think it does make it a little bit easier for the defense to not get picked apart by just pure slot receivers like we have been seeing over the past month. So, I mean, maybe.
Okay. We're just going to throw that out there. Didn't like you could throw it right back. If
Steven Nelson plays like he did last year, then now we're talking. Like, right? If you give me one guy that I feel like confident going into a game that the outside corner play will be good, then okay, Jalen Watson's back. absolutely better with McDuffie in the slot, right? You can deal with the one boundary corner I don't trust. You get Steven Nelson, and he proves he can play close to what he did last year when he played for the Texans. Sure, I can trust him out there. I can deal with one outside corner that don't think is consistent. Two of them, though, give me two boundary corners that you don't think are consistent. That's where I start to get a little too nervous.
I mean, yeah, I even forgot about Steve Nelson a little bit, but like, yeah, he could really change things up a little bit here for this team, huh? If he can play capably, and then you're splitting time with Joshua Williams and Nazi as the third corner, and you might got a stew going. I don't know, man. That may not be too shabby. Anything else about the defense though that you want to talk about, just besides the Chris Jones in the pass rush?
I thought Nick Bolton played a pretty good game. I thought he was coming downhill well. When given kind of like, I don't know what Spags has going on with the calls for Nick Bolton on the defense. It doesn't look like they're true green dogs, but they're also not true blitzes. I don't think either. Like, it's the quickest read. And like, sometimes I don't feel like he's actually reading a running back to determine if he's rushing or not. Sometimes it feels like it's just a delay, but it doesn't structurally make sense to be a pure blitz because they don't have an answer. So I'm not sure what all the calls are. I'd have to really dig in, but his timing on when he's decided to come on some of these blitzes has been really, really good. He's getting a lot of free rushes, or he's getting a lot of times where he's making a running back have to decide between him and somebody else. So I think Nick has been very good at whatever that is. And I don't know who's peeling off to take the running back if he just does get out to the flat. If it's the Browns and there was something they saw on film that said, oh, if we give them this front or this look, we know the back is staying in because Jameis doesn't want to check it down anyway. I don't know how they got there. I just thought a lot of his blitz timing was fantastic in this game. And it seemed like they never got caught, like with Nick coming a half second later than everybody else and then just leaving somebody wide open right behind it or out in the flats.
Yeah. It seemed like it was some of their 3-down looks, but they had or the 5-down looks with Tranquil walk down, and then they were blitzing with that. And Drew and Nick met it Jameis unblocked at one point in one of those. Some really well timed blitzes from Nick. He comes down with that interception too, that was hilarious, and we'll take that every single time for sure. But that was awesome to see. I thought he had a good performance in this game as well. I think you saw. I think Turk Ward had a good game. George Karlaftis, I think, had a good performance as well. There's some guys that played well in this game against the Cleveland Browns, and I know it's a 3-10 football team, but feels good to take care of business, on one side of the football at least, and the Chiefs definitely did that against the Browns. Anything else on defense though?
No, I don't have anything else on defense. Before we get to our last thing here though that I have to explain, I did want to talk a little bit about the offense actually briefly. And very specifically the Chiefs deep ball, Patrick Mahomes deep ball. I was kind of looking at stuff today and just kind of figuring out I don't want to get too far into the film aspect of it just yet. I was looking though. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 40 passes, somewhere between 35 and 40. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Deep passes this year, over 20 yards. That is by far his lowest pace of his entire career. He's averages somewhere between 65 and 85 deep passes with only 3 games left. And especially with one of those being an extra game that he hasn't had every single year he's played football, he is well below his usual pace in terms of pushing the ball downfield. Even more surprising, I want to say 40. That's not the lowest in the NFL this year. There's actually a handful of quarterbacks lower than him. The majority of them have played less games than him. The only quarterback that really has been a full-time starter that's played every game that has thrown less deep passes than him is Jared Goff and Jalen Hurts. Don't know if those are the two guys you necessarily want to be lockstep in terms of deep passing, but Patrick Mahomes is lowest in the NFL in terms of the percentage of his passes going deep at 8%. 8% of his passes go over 20 yards. Now, I think we all thought, they've been not throwing the ball as deep as much lately, especially since they lost Tyreek Hill. That's true. They did drop a little bit in the volume and how often they threw deep, but you even compare this to last year, 10%. The year before, 9.7%. They are well below even what they've been when they haven't thrown it deep. And then just the ultimate volume coming in. I mean, if he plays all 3 games, he's still coming in under 50 deep attempts this year. I don't know. It's just really weird. The way this offense works, they're not good at it. But the fact that they are so hesitant to even try to throw the ball downfield is really odd. And it seems like if you look around the rest of the league, it seems like a lot of teams are having an uptick in how often they throw the ball downfield because it's become a lot more short gain or big gain in the NFL. Nobody tries to play the intermediate stuff. Nobody works like stuff like that anymore. It's either quick game or it's going deep downfield off of play action. That's kind of like what's hot right now in the NFL. The Chiefs are trending the opposite direction of everybody else in terms of pushing the ball downfield. I just thought it was interesting how far off his like average career averages he is in terms of total volume and then the percentage of his passes that are being pushed downfield.
Yeah, the Lions have a good intermediate passing game still. They can still throw those digs. Some of those Shanny offenses still can get some of those digs going and stuff like that. But yeah, the Chiefs don't have an intermediate passing game anymore, and they barely have a deep passing game at this point. And it is very frustrating to try to watch this at times, especially knowing that like Xavier Worthy has the potential to be that guy. I wonder sometimes, and I think about this a lot, probably more than I should because it's just a what if at this point. But this team has really struggled to. I think it's just been struggling and trying to find their footing since Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown got hurt to start the season. And, I don't know if the vertical passing game, I don't know what the vertical passing rates look like in the first 2 games of the season relative to what we've seen, in other, the rest of the year. So like you might have a better pulse on that. But, it just kind of feels like some of that might have gone away because now Xavier Worthy's having to be used a little bit more differently where, Rashee Rice could have been, Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown could be in their roles, and then that would allow Hollywood to, be more focused in that role, and maybe they would have got some things going a little bit more in that regard and all that kind of stuff. This is all what ifs, but this team has just been trying to figure something out the entirety of the season since they lost those 2 guys, and maybe Hollywood Brown's finally back in this game, so we can finally start getting that chemistry with Patrick. Oh, wait, Patrick is not playing this week, or maybe not. Maybe not.
Specifically to the Hollywood Brown thing. Yeah. And like I had 2 more pieces on this like vertical thing before we can kind of continue on. One, the overall volume and the percentage of deep balls, that's the lowest an Andy Reid offense has been since the first 2 years Alex Smith was in Kansas City. That was the last time they threw deep this infrequently. And then what they have done this year, which is lower than, again, what they had done in last year when we said that they didn't throw the deep ball. Or in 2022, when the whole idea was, they stopped throwing the deep ball because teams took it away. They are lower than those marks this year. They are currently at 2013 and 2014 Alex Smith Kansas City Chiefs offense level in terms of pushing the ball downfield.
Let's go.
Rough. And the efficiency is probably worse. I didn't get that far yet. Then the next thing, Xavier Worthy's their only deep threat. He's the only guy they want to push the ball downfield to. I think I sent this to you in a DM earlier. Even going back to Tyreek Hill, the highest amount of the target share of deep passes the highest that Tyreek Hill had in Kansas City was 46%. Currently, Xavier Worthy is at like 52%. He's the only player they put there. Not only are they not throwing downfield hardly at all, Xavier Worthy is getting over half of their downfield attempts. You would assume with Hollywood Brown in the mix like they anticipated, he would be eating into that a lot more, right? It would at least be split between those 2 guys. But I think part of the issue, and maybe this is why they're not doing it as often, because they don't have guys that are particularly great at it, but they don't do a good job of scheming other guys up there. Even last year, I was looking at it, Justin Watson had a lot more of his targets were coming downfield. This year, not the case. They very rarely are getting down there. Again, not good at it. So it's not like you're saying you got to build the entire offense out of it. I just thought it was kind of crazy that Worthy has by far the highest share of deep throw targets this year than Tyreek Hill ever had in Kansas City and MVS had when he was in Kansas City. Like this entire deep passing game is built around a rookie who hasn't quite found his stride with Patrick Mahomes yet. And so hopefully Hollywood Brown comes back and kind of evens that out, balances it, and makes it a little bit easier. But like I kind of thought that was a little shocking.
You know what's going to happen, right?
Ooh. What's going to happen?
Xavier Worthy is going to catch 2 deep touchdowns in the playoffs.
I would hope.
1 in the Super Bowl, 1 in the divisional round. Yeah. But it's going to happen. Like, he's like, they're going to find it. They're going to hit him and everything. That wasn't an intrusive thought for me, but I think you're about to purge some intrusive thoughts. What are we doing here? Can we?
Okay. You also mentioned Rashee Rice's injury earlier. Patrick Mahomes was throwing the ball less vertically when Rashee Rice was still healthy too. There was even less per game then. It feels like they tried to force it later down the stretch. Anyway, all right. Purging intrusive thoughts. I don't think this is particularly a new idea to the podcast world, but I'm looking at the Chiefs season this year, right? We usually on this show, we have what we call Chiefs-tivists, where after a loss, we talk about the things from the game that are kind of, just upsetting that you just want to vent about and get off your chest. I don't think we're going to have a Chiefs-tivist this year. Looking at the way the schedule is lined up, if the Chiefs suffer a loss that's coming up, I don't think it's going to be Chiefs-Divis worthy because
Agreed.
you're going to be looking at a backup quarterback, an injured Patrick Mahomes, and a team that is still probably going to be in the driver's seat for the 1 seed unless they drop multiple games. So I mean, I can't say it won't happen. It just seems unlikely. So this is kind of like Chiefs-Divis adjacent. But we're purging intrusive thoughts here. What we're doing, we're just getting off our chest those thoughts that come into your head that you don't necessarily believe, but you've thought of them multiple times throughout the season about the Chiefs. So it's not something that you want to sit here and say is going to happen, that you think is true, but things that have crossed your mind multiple times while watching the team this year, and nobody can hold you accountable. Nobody can throw this back in your face. Nobody can make fun of you for this because you're openly saying, I don't know if I believe this, but it's crossed my mind numerous times. I'll go first because I'm not afraid. You seem a little scared. I'll go first.
And we should open this up to the chat too.
Oh, yeah, please. If you are here in the chat, please say what your intrusive thought is that you would like to get off your chest. Again, nobody can judge you for it. This is a thought that you have had that you don't necessarily believe. Maybe you sat there and thought about it. You mulled it over for a few minutes and said, no, that's silly. I don't actually believe that. But then you thought about it again 2 weeks later. Still don't believe it, but it keeps coming up. So give us some of yours. Here's mine. In the playoffs, every team the Chiefs play should blitz every third down. Cover zero, man coverage, just blitz because the Chiefs' old receivers can't get open in time. There's no chance. And the way that this offensive line has picked up stunts, has picked up blitzes this year has not been good. Patrick Mahomes has actually been pretty bad versus the blitz. I don't think it's all his fault, but it keeps watching it. Every couple games, there's a blitz and you see it and there's a free rusher and nobody is open because there's one guy on the team that can actually get separation in under 2.5 seconds. So it's just, that's what it is. I keep coming up to me like, as good as Mahomes has been throughout his entire career versus the blitz, I don't know if that's the case this year. I don't know if it's all his fault, but like cover zero every single time on third down against the Chiefs, make somebody get open and win quickly.
I don't think that that's entirely his fault. And I think that is very true. Doesn't feel like the Chiefs have had great man beater calls this year either. And maybe that's, something that we'll see down the stretch. Like they seem to have better answers for man, down the stretch. But yeah, they definitely have not been particularly good about that. Fine. Here's an intrusive thought. I got one.
Yeah. No, please.
Travis Kelce might be washed. There may not be an extra gear. There may not be a playoff gear.
Okay, hold on. That one's not intrusive. There is definitely. Oh, okay. You meant he was going to turn up and play better for a game, not an actual speed gear.
I think the hope, the hope is that he can go out there and there's like an extra gear in the playoffs and he can go do what he did against Fred Warner in the playoffs and like he can look better. But like, whoo, it's tougher to watch this year than in previous years. And so like, I'm a little bit nervous that like, that there isn't an extra gear. I think we're all hoping that there is. And cause we saw it last year. But and I think last year has ruined everything for us from a perspective. And you can't put anything on this. You can't figure this team out at all. They're 13-1. They've lost one football game. But we keep pointing to last year's playoffs. I don't know. It's been tough sledding. He's not making people miss. Like, I think he even made more people miss last year in the regular season than he did. I think he was able to get more yards after the catch last year than he is this year. And like that, like first contact, he's down most of the time these days. And like, that's why he's outsourcing his yak to Samaje Perine on third down. So I don't know, man. I'm more nervous about Travis Kelce than I have been in recent memory. There's that.
We got some from the chat I'm going to rip through before I get to another one of mine. Steven, my intrusive thought is that Josh Allen might not revert to a hero ball in the postseason and that Mahomes has another Bucs game where he has to scramble for his life for 60 minutes. Yeah, seems entirely possible.
Yeah.
Bumpa, Andy Reid isn't a great play caller anymore. I don't know if it's not a great play caller, but I feel like defenses have caught up and he hasn't changed enough to get back ahead of them. So like, I'm kind of with you on that one. Okay, this might be one of my favorite ones from T. Andy Reid doesn't like that Mahomes rightfully gets more credit than him, so he actively tries to keep his stats down. Listen, I have a thought that's similar to that, and that Andy Reid doesn't like that Patrick Mahomes like to freestyle so much. And the first year, 2023, where he got a chance to really throw it back in his face, he let him know. He really let him know, and I think that's why we have seen passive Patrick Mahomes. But again, this is the intrusive thought segment. You can't come at me. For that, but I do think that there has been a difference since he has been trying to play more passive. Let's see. Do we have any other good ones coming through here?
Pat is going
Ooh,
through something physically and emotionally from Jane 2021.
kids.
They're very intrusive. Like you said, kids. um, going
I like
going
this
for
one.
the three-peat has stunted the overall growth of the team, and as they are just trying to keep it running it back. That's from Zach Andera.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
they're definitely not. They're definitely not future-minded as much as they are. I mean, I could actually. You know what? Some of
They're
their drafts
towing
have
the
been
line.
more future-minded. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
trying to
they're
toe the
straddling
line, and that's
they're
really
straddling
hard to
line,
do.
Like, who's besides Worthy, who had to step in because of the injuries? Like, who's the young guy that has been like thrust out there that has like had to accomplish something, right? Like, it hasn't really happened. So maybe, I mean, like, again, not
Kingsley
judging anybody here,
Stillmatta, yeah.
buddy. they tried. I had another one that I completely forgot what it was. Oh yeah, okay. The Chiefs team cannot beat the Buffalo Bills if Jamari Conner plays as the slot cornerback. That's my intrusive thought. I don't think that they have a shot to stop Shakir if he is their slot cornerback. Now, that might not be the case. I just think that we saw this happen in the game before. And saying that they have no shot to beat the Bills is wrong. If they get the ball last, they obviously can beat them. So I want to walk this back. The defense doesn't have a good shot of slowing down the Bills offense if Connor is the primary slot corner when they play the Bills, because I think they have a slot wide receiver tailor-made to taking advantage of him, and one of the quarterbacks in the NFL, they will go back to that well and is physically capable of doing so over and over again. I think it is incredibly important for the Chiefs to find a way to get Trent McDuffie in the slot for important matchups.
Oh, I got a spicy one here. S-Bone. Schwartz and Fisher is better than Creed, Trey, and Tooney. Woo! That is spicy intrusive.
Yeah.
That is the most intrusive.
Is it?
I can't say I disagree.
Tackles are more important than interior offensive
Tackles
line.
are more important than interior
like,
offensive linemen. I get
it feels
the
like
idea
we
of,
did
like
dance.
3 elite, possibly best interior line in football, 1 elite right tackle, and a pretty good left tackle. Yeah, I think you're right, and like I think for Patrick Mahomes in particular, it's probably more valuable to have better tackles than it is to have a better interior offensive line. But I'd still pay Trey.
Oh, so you keep going. I'm just putting some up here. This
No.
one is Andy might have lost some of his offensive magic. You don't have to be sorry. That's what this is here for. There's been a couple. There's been more than one people that said, "Hey, I don't know if Andy has the secret sauce this year." So like, yeah, I think seeing other people have those same thoughts, maybe you don't gotta be so nervous to talk about these things. Some people have some of the same concerns. Like there's been a lot of them that have had the same thing. I saw this one here. J-Lo. They emphasize correcting Mahomes' bad habits and have in turn made him into a less explosive in the pass game over time.
Have you been in the group chat for Maddie for the last 3 years?
Hey, listen, this is it. They got really upset with him, being a playmaker, being a gunslinger, and then they were like, "Hey, see, it doesn't always work. Tone it down." And now when he has to get loose, can't. Throws the ball out of the back of the end zone instead of hitting Worthy in between the two guys.
The Chiefs should sign a veteran left tackle. The Chiefs need to sign a veteran left tackle. They should not draft it. They should not trade up for one. They should not draft one in the first round. They should sign a veteran left tackle.
Are you signing Jedrick Wills to the Jawan Taylor contract? I don't know what he wants. He's young. First-round pick. Bad player.
Maybe.
Ooh.
I think maybe.
I like it.
I just hope that Trent Williams gets cut.
Would you sign Ronnie Stanley to top 5 left tackle money? He's been healthy again this year. He's playing every snap. He looks good again, but he's older. He's like 31, but 31 next year, I think.
How old is he?
31.
Yeah, he'll be 31. Top 5? Yeah.
I mean, there's at one point in time, Ronnie Stanley, before he got through the injury bug, Ronnie Stanley was considered easily a top 5 tackle, right? It's like that you wouldn't even bat an eye, I don't think.
Give him the Jordan Mailata contract. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're doing it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. But they just need to get that figured out. They need to get that solved. They gotta get taken care of business. Trent Williams, I'd love to see, maybe Trent Williams gets cut. Maybe the Chiefs can trade for Trent Williams. His contract, it's $20 million. Oh wait, no, hold on. That's his signing bonus. I gotta go find his cap hit. Oh, his base salary is only $1.2 million next year. Trade for Trent Williams.
Okay. We get some questions. We can be quick. Why do you think the Chiefs stink in the second half? Why is the offense so bad in the second half, Kent?
Because it's less about the opening script and more about
Has the opening script been good?
I mean, they put more points on the board earlier in the games. I feel
No,
like.
they have in the first half. I mean, I don't know. It feels. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think back. It feels like they kind of find. It feels to me, and this is completely incidental, that they find that groove in the second quarter, which would be outside of the script. It would be like they adjust
Not
to what they see.
necessarily.
Yeah, that's what I said. It feels like. No, I know that's a possibility. Get away from the script, and now all of a sudden they can't make it work. Possibly. Do you have any more intrusive thoughts you want to get off your chest? Don't be scared. Don't be afraid.
I think the vertical stuff's been more on Pat than Xavier Worthy.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Again, I'm not even trying to. I don't want to argue because, like, it's not the point here. I think it's definitely not. It's definitely not on Pat. I will say that.
We should have had Sully on for this. He just tweets every intrusive.
No. These are things that you don't actually believe when you think about it. You just want to get off your chest. Sully would just tell us what he actually believes. Like, that's not the same. That's not the same. You ready for my last one?
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins was absolutely the correct wide receiver for the Chiefs to go after in the trade market. He lost his superpower of 50-50 catches. It's gone. It's fried. It's not there. Since was it the 49ers game or was it the Bucks game where he came out that one in the Bucks game? I'm pretty sure he's gone 0 for 5 since then. And like true 50-50 opportunities where he has to go up and win the ball through contact when the defensive back also has the opportunity to get it. I'm pretty sure he's gone 0 for 5. Not that they've been perfect, right? But that's kind of the nature. It's a 50-50 ball. You have to work through contact, come away with the catch. They've been very difficult catches. Pretty sure he's gone 0 for 5, 0 for 6 if you count a pass interference in there. I just saying that superpower might be gone. Still great. Still catches the ball through contact. He can still catch the ball away from his frame and take a hit. But you ask him to go up and win a 50-50 ball. Like, we have one example of it working and a handful now of it not. Superpower might be gone.
It's coming back in January.
Age comes back. Age comes to everybody.
I feel like a lot of positive feedback on intrusive thoughts. A lot of people enjoying the intrusive thoughts. Yeah, intrusive thought. What if Andy doesn't have anything actually saved for the playoffs? Hey, look, this is like entirely in the realm of possibility. It's probably not true. Like, this team might just be trying to get through the regular season and go out and doing their thing, and they just look entirely better like as soon as they come back in. Like, I think that's like the belief, but like I get it. I get the allure of thinking that because makes you forget.
My intrusive thought is that Butler's meniscus injury will linger and he'll start missing clutch kicks. Butker. We'll start missing clutch kicks in the playoffs and we'll have to see endless nonsense about the kitchen. Okay. And then kind of brought the latter part on itself a little bit, but yeah. I mean, like, you missed that little gimme field goal. I know it was rushed and stuff like that, but here's a guy that came back pretty quick after knee injury, and he has a funky follow through for his kick. So if that knee becomes an issue, and all of a sudden Andy can't rely on somebody icing 57-yard game winners late in the game, it definitely could become an issue in the playoffs because that's kind of been one of their secret weapons compared to some others. Oh, here we go.
I like this one. Bumblebee intrusive thought Chiefs should draft fundamentally solid tackles instead of athletes with long arms.
Yeah. I don't even know if that was an intrusive thought at this point.
I don't know if that's intrusive either.
At this point, okay, there's 3 levels to draft prospects. We got to have a draft show soon. There's 3 levels of draft prospects. There's like guys that are ready. There's guys that are developmental, and there's guys that are projects. The Chiefs keep flirting between project and developmental for tackles, and they're getting nowhere with it. It's time to go up that list. You got to get somebody that maybe has a lower ceiling, but is closer to ready. And like maybe drafting at the end of round 1 or round 2, you won't get a ready guy, but at least get somebody that's developing, not a complete tear down project like they keep going for. So, I mean, I don't even know if that was an intrusive thought. That's just a fact.
Well, I'm like, I mean, if you're so beholden to certain measurements, you're eliminating other potential very good football players. The Green Bay Packers have a very good offensive line that would not meet Andy Reid's thresholds for arm length. So, maybe should we close on this one?
I want one more after the one I think you're trying. If you're putting up the Noah Gray one, you should put it up.
I'll do that one last. That's a good one to close on for the audio only people. So you
Okay, I want to close on this one. Just from Albert. Intrusive thought that Connor Embry is really good. I don't know if this is done in jest. However,
it's totally
listen,
done in jest. Is this Eisen's burger?
No. You say that. I'm going to push back here. I'm going to push back here a little bit. Look at the two players that the Chiefs have given him with actual talent at the wide receiver position. Which two players those? Rashee Rice got better as the year went on. Xavier Worthy, what has he done? Got better as the year's gone on. I'm not saying that Connor Embry is the best wide receiver coach in the NFL. I think people maybe came from the throat a little too early because he couldn't make Justin Watson and Marquez Valdez-Scantling better than what they have been their entire pro careers. Just saying, maybe we jumped the gun on him a little bit. Not necessarily that he's great. Okay, we can end on another one though.
All right, we're closing with this one. Benjamin Anderson, intrusive thought. Noah Gray will be Super Bowl MVP.
Ooh, let's go.
I don't care who's the MVP as long as the MVP, but I love the intrusive thought of still winning a Super Bowl. That is a tremendous way to close this out. Eisen says he doesn't need a burner.
Get him.
I think Albert Quan's your burners, Eisen. Why don't you go back to tweeting about how terrible the Lakers are? That's going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you all so much for listening, watching. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
This is why I do surprise segments, Kent.
Why didn't we let Tucker have an intrusive thought?
We should have called him